So again, thanks for making it to the webinar. And myself, Sahith, and I work with the marketing team at Exotel. And with us, we have Pranav, who is the product manager and who worked on this product called ExoVerify. And we also have Chirag, who is a product manager for developer experience. He also contributed in building this product, which would help businesses to verify more users with the least efforts and costs. So, and good afternoon, wherever you're joining from, good morning and good evening. And by end of this webinar, we hope that you will leave with some rich insights on how you can improve your verification matrices and with the least efforts. And if it sounds too good to be true, you should wait for another 30 minutes max, and we'll show you how it is done. And yes, this session is being recorded, and we'll send you the slides and recording in less than a day. And if you have any doubts, just drop hi Gaurav, hi Vijay, drop your message in the chat or Q&A section, and we have our product managers here who can help you out in clarifying any doubts on how this can be achieved. And so I hope you can see me and hear me. If you don't, please try and rejoin so that you can join us early. All right, so let me just get started. So this is the agenda for today's webinar. So I'll just set some stage before I hand it over to the speakers on why we need authentication and current state of verification and the challenges that come with it. So these challenges are not just for businesses, but also for end consumers on how they are facing some challenges and how there are some opportunities to make their lives better. And then Pranav would take over and explain how you can solve these problems with ExoVerify, our unique product in the market, and some use cases and best practices around user verification or authentication. And towards the end, we have a small demo by Chirag and our Q&A session. So this is a broad agenda. So we'll try and wrap the session within 30 minutes. So just stay tuned. Okay, before we jump into the webinar, I just wanted to introduce Exotel. So Exotel is a full stack customer engagement platform, and we are also a virtual telecom operator. And we have been calling ourselves as OneExo, but this is a temporary name. So we are now together with Ameo and Cogno. We have merged with Ameo and acquired Cogno. So together, we form a full stack platform. So what do we mean by full stack? So this is what the full stack broadly comprises of. So we have all the networks and channels that businesses require to engage with customers. And these channels are powered to three broad platforms we have. One is a communication platform, contact center platform, and a conversational AI platform. Upon these platforms, we have built several products or applications that can enable businesses to solve different problems. And today, for instance, we are going to cover about ExoVerify. In fact, we had a couple of webinars around campaigns and cloud contact center. So in this webinar, we'll see where ExoVerify plays a crucial part in this full stack. And these are some of the flagship use cases that businesses today use Exotel for. For example, you may have heard of number masking. So all the calls that you receive from Ola, Swiggy, Zomato, Exotel powers in the backend, where it masks the customer number and delivery executive number from each other. Similarly, we solve different problems. And in fact, there is something called user verification on the top, you see. So that is something that is solved by ExoVerify. And yeah, so we've been in the market for over 10 years, and we power 6,000 businesses in 60 countries. So on a day-to-day basis, we made 50 million engagements. So as we speak, there are millions of calls happening in the background, millions of calls, messages, chatbots running, helping businesses to engage with their customers. So that's a broad view of what Exotel or OneExo is all about. Okay, so I mean, most of you here must be already knowing the importance of authentication, but I'm here to also share some interesting stats around verification. So cyber crimes or data breaches happen every single day. So we keep looking at the news, and there are data breaches happening one day for Flipkart, one day for MobiKwik. And in fact, I had my credentials being stolen through some of the services that I've been using. And similarly, today, as per a research by Digital Shadows, we have 15 billion credentials that are being in the market, being circulated, so that, which can be used to hack into accounts. And there is an acronym called ATO, which is account takeovers. And it is so the data breach actually is a marketplace where our credentials are being sold at different price ranges. So if someone wants a password, you can get as low as $4 to as high as $71. So if someone would like to have a bank password, so they have to pay the highest amount. Or someone would like to have a social media password, you can get it at $4. So this is actually a thing today, where our credentials are being circulated in the market. So this is a big problem, and for the same reason, businesses are trying to have different authentication layers or verification layers, so that they can have as secure transactions as possible. So while we know that authentication is necessary, but there are some disadvantages, not really disadvantages, but there are some problems. So there are broadly two types of problems. The end consumers are facing some problems with respect to authentication, and businesses as well. So now let's look at what the end consumers are facing the problems with. So yeah, this is one big problem. So for instance, an average person uses 191 services. I think this is definitely true, because I myself use 350 different services or 350 different passwords in my password manager. And maybe of these 350 different passwords are divided amongst just 5 passwords, where I replicated it across the 350 services. So if one of my passwords is being stolen, someone has an opportunity to try against different services that I use, so that they can get into my account. So this is a problem for users, and users do not access your app from one device. So now you have an app, you have a web app, you have a tablet app, or you have an Android app. So users log into your devices across these places, and the lack of being or having a consistent verification experience across these devices really is something that repels the users away as a result of poor user experience. So businesses do face these problems of high drop-offs while being verified, or while logging in, or while signing up, or while being getting KYC verified. So this is a problem. So these are some of the user related problems. So before we jump into the company or business related problems, let's look at the types of authentications that businesses are using today. So broadly 3 types. So type 1 is the first layer. So these authentications are some few things that the users know. So these are something that only users, the end consumers, remember, and this is the first layer of authentication. And since these are anyways being circulated in the market, so now there is another layer that is being added for a second factor or a multi-factor authentication. So this is something that user holds. So this is something that is unique, or these are some of the tokens that are being generated, and these are some things that can't be really circulated or be the same all the time. So you may have heard of few things here. For example, smartphone tokens are the Google authenticators or the Microsoft authenticators that we have on our smartphones. Magic links are the unique links that we get. NOTP is something that we are building in this type 2 of verifications, and which Pranav would be walking us through. And there are also something called as RSA tokens. So these are physical forms of tokens that are still being used by large companies to have that additional layer of authentication. And the last type is where we have something that the user is or does. So you can think of it as a biometric verification, where users can verify using their fingerprint or Face ID. So these are the broad levels of authentication that are there in the market, and businesses are actually using these authentications. And the way it is being used is not straightforward, because as we have seen in the poll, right, businesses have to work with multiple vendors to get multiple mechanisms or multiple channels to set up these verification journeys. And as a result, you have to deal with different vendors. And if something goes down, say if a call doesn't land or an SMS doesn't land, now you have to get in touch with different companies to get something troubleshooted, and it's not straightforward. And similarly, with your apps being in different devices, you have to build the verification journeys uniquely for each of these devices. And imagine now you also have something on a business facing apps or merchant facing apps. So the problem only multiplies. And not only it is difficult to build these journeys, it is also difficult to monitor everything at a broad view so that I can quickly find out if anything is wrong and troubleshoot it. So these are some business related problems. So now that we saw the two sides of the coin, let's hand it over to Pranav, where he would like to address on how these problems can be solved by one of the products that we are building, and more about it. Over to you, Pranav.
Thank you, Sahid. Hi, folks. So I'm Pranav. I'm the product manager of ExoVerify. As Sahid might have mentioned, ExoVerify is the authentication product of Exotel. So it's a one-stop shop for user verification. It has a host of mechanisms that businesses can use in the form of a single API, and it has an omni-channel approach towards user authentication. Some of the USPs that we have are in terms of cost saving and a seamless user experience for the verification journey of your users. So right now, as of now, we are live with NOTP. The product is available to for public use right now, and NOTP is our unique flagship mechanism as a part of ExoVerify. I will be diving a little deeper into that, and as a part of the one-stop shop approach, we will have SMS OTP, voice OTP, WhatsApp verification, email OTP, cryptographic verification, and a few more authentication mechanisms, which will also be included as a part of the ExoVerify suite of mechanisms. And the way it will work is, as you can see in the bottom line, we'll just have a single API, and in the case of NOTP, a single SDK for all your verification needs. So you can always, need not look at multiple vendors or multiple, APIs to utilize multiple mechanisms here. So it's just a single one-stop shop for you for any of your, user authentication, user verification needs. So I'll dive a little deeper into NOTP. So NOTP is, very, very simple from a end user standpoint. So all that he essentially does is, he just types the mobile number that he's trying to authenticate, and he hits the verify button. So from a UX standpoint, that's all that there is. We'll actually see a demo of it, Chirag. Once I'm done with my side, my part of the presentation, Chirag will be showing you a demo. But in the back end, what happens is you will just simply have the SDK, the Exotel SDK, which is integrated with the Android app. And then that will be actively listening to a specific call that is triggered from Exotel servers. And once that call is rejected, we know that, that the mobile number that the user has entered is, successfully present on the device. So the two caveats there that you'll have to remember, one is the NOTP as a service currently is available only in the form of an SDK, and it's only available for Android apps. So iOS, there's technical restrictions from the OS side itself, because of which it cannot work. But having said that, it works seamlessly for any Android application. And the other USP that I was talking to you about was cost savings. So there are a lot of cost savings that can be, obtained through the usage of NOTP, and quite significant, as you can see here. So as you can imagine, the price of an SMS is a lot higher than, say, the price of a missed call. So, and of course, the service itself. So that's how we can, help you actually reduce your overall verification costs. So this is one of the other points which Sahit also was trying to highlight, wherein we are saying that, you can integrate multiple mechanisms with a single API hit. So you can, in that one single API, what you can do is you can configure, orchestrate different mechanisms that you want and set timeouts for each and every verification that you want. So you could probably say, try NOTP for the first 10 seconds and, and then immediately fall back onto SMS OTP. And if that did not work out in the next, say, 5 seconds or 10 seconds, try to use a WhatsApp verification methodology. And all of this can happen with a single API hit. So that's where, the beauty of ExoVerify and that one API methodology, one API concept kicks in. And the same thing can happen with web or iOS or tablet apps for that matter. Of course, given that NOTP wouldn't work in that case, you could probably start off with something like, say, SMS OTP or voice OTP, and automatically create that orchestrated approach, those journeys, if you want to call it, to have multiple mechanisms come into play. And you can also trigger them simultaneously if you want. So probably you can, just like how probably we have, how our Wi-Fi calling works, wherein where the voice data is being routed through the internet as well, and through the telephony network, and whichever reaches the end user first is the packet that will actually get picked up by the receiver. So similarly, you could trigger something like that even for a verification mechanism here. You could probably say you want NOTP and SMS OTP to simultaneously go forward, and whichever happens first can automatically complete the verification. So two advantages here: one, success percentages will skyrocket, they'll hit the ceiling, and then naturally from a UX standpoint, it's a lot more seamless, given that you will have the ability to very quickly fall back, because everything is happening with a single API hit, and whatever changes you're seeing from the end user standpoint is directly coming from Exotel servers. So some of the use cases that you can think about is quite pretty straightforward. So login, sign up, password resets. So sometimes in e-commerce apps, you would have noticed that when you want to choose cash on delivery, right, it sometimes asks you for an additional step for authentication. It can be used there as well. Any other forms of some use case, so very specific use case that we have noticed is, delivery executives are typically logged out of their apps on a daily basis for security concerns. And businesses want to ensure that only the registered mobile number is actually the number that's getting verified. So NOTP can play a very, very crucial role there in terms of security and in terms of controlling which number gets to be verified. So we also have that feature in NOTP where when, say, a verification has been requested, we actually can ping your servers and ask you if you want to proceed with that particular number's verification or not. So that gives a lot of power and a lot of security to use cases like that, where a repeated logout is happening. And naturally, cost saving will automatically kick in, because generating thousands and lakhs of SMSs on a daily basis can prove quite expensive. And in the case of NOTP, that price reduction will definitely be perceivable. So some of the advantages, as previously mentioned, there is very, very smooth customer experience. Chirag will be showing you guys how it will look. Enhanced security here, because at the end of the day, given that there's this tight coupling between the mobile number and the app, it's not like I can go onto my device and dial someone else's number and expect NOTP to work for me. But of course, if the use case does not require the tight coupling, the other mechanisms can always be used, like SMS OTP or voice OTP. But depending on your use case, you always have that power to say, hey, you know what, I want the mobile number to be there on that particular app instance itself. So device specific verification is something that's definitely there. And enhanced cost saving with NOTP, as previously mentioned. Just going back on the previous point in terms of enhanced security. So naturally, I'm sure you understand that, when it comes to 4 digits SMS OTPs, you basically have 9,999 ways of cracking that particular code. And say 6 digits, then naturally, 999,999 ways of actually cracking that code. But in the case of NOTP, the security automatically goes a lot higher, because we use a very proprietary methodology to hash the mobile number, and the SDK knows only that specific pattern in that particular number, which can be which essentially identifies the missed call from the servers. So there's definitely added security there that comes in. Quicker app access, we've seen as high as, I'm talking about verification completion as low as 1.5 seconds. So that's how quick the verification can actually be, can actually happen. So in the case of SMS, there's naturally, there might be a delay in the SMS getting delivered, and then, the user inputting the number. But in the case of NOTP, that would not be the case, because the entire turnaround time from the time the user hits verify to the time that the verification completes can be as low as 1 to 1.5 seconds. Increase user verification naturally, because you're not relying on one mechanism. I did see in the poll that I think 25% of our users were, sticking to a single verification mechanism. So naturally, a single channel, you never put your eggs in one single basket. So that from that perspective, your success percentages can automatically shoot up. And given that, we have state-of-the-art setup on AWS and the way we have architectured our service, we can always handle scalability in terms of your traffic. And we've seen unprecedented growths from startups turning into unicorns overnight. And, we can always make sure that, your traffic is catered to, and scalability as a concern will never really be a problem. So you can just focus on your core business rather than focusing on, user verification, and basically non-core activities will be offloaded very easily. So some of the best practices, build with minimal architecture and clean APIs. Given that this is a single API approach, you can monitor and optimize your integrations in terms of, we have the ExoVerify UI, which Chirag will again be demoing to you guys after I'm just done here. And you can constantly, on a real-time basis, you can actually monitor what's happening. And I did notice that a large percentage of our our participants here today don't really have access to reporting and dashboarding and statistics. So that is something which is very easily eliminated as a part of the ExoVerify product. So let the customers know what to expect. This is a best practice in the sense to say, when you're creating, say, an orchestration, when you're creating multi-mechanism approach for users, or you're using NOTP, it's always good to let the users know what to expect. So you can, for example, if you're using NOTP, it's always good to tell your users, please ensure that you're entering the mobile number that's present on this particular device, so that the verification doesn't fail at the end of the day. And gamification specific to NOTP. This is in fact something that we learned from our existing customer, who's a giant in the Southeast Asian market. So what that actually done is, in that 30-second timeout. So NOTP has a 30-second timeout. So in those 30 seconds, assume, say the verification duration crossed 5 seconds or 7 seconds, they would bring up a tiny little game in the form of some Tetris, or, in the form of a pinball or something like that, just so that they can keep their users engaged, just to gamify the whole experience in case there is an unfortunate delay. So I'll just stop here and I'll hand it over to Chirag, who will now be giving you a live demo of NOTP and the ExoVerify UI. Thank you. Over to you, Chirag.
Thank you so much, Pranav. Before we move on to the ExoVerify dashboard and see how that looks like, we'll first look at how NOTP works and have a live run at it. So if you see, this is a sample application where the NOTP SDK is integrated, and the user types out their number, and that number is passed on to the NOTP server in the format of E164. And if you see, it waited for a few seconds, a call came into the device. The SDK identified that this call was from the NOTP server, and it automatically cut the call. And the user did not even see the call coming in, and it was automatically a success. This is how seamless NOTP can be. And let's move on to the ExoVerify dashboard. So when you go to verify.exotel.com, that is the ExoVerify dashboard's URL, you will first look at the login screen. You will need the prerequisite to access this dashboard would be credentials that you would get if you create an account with Exotel in my.exotel.com. Those credentials will be valid over here as well. Once you get into the dashboard, this is the first page that you can see. The home page gives you a couple of artifacts that explains to you what NOTP is about and how it is advantageous to you. This page will also show you, in the near future, it will show you the various statistics as to how NOTP has performed for you in the current day. That will be here soon. The first step you would need to do to integrate NOTP in your application is to actually create an app over here. So to set up an NOTP app, all you have to do is click on Create New Application button. If you might have multiple applications where you want to integrate NOTP. For example, if you have a driver app and then you have a customer app, you would want to integrate NOTP in both of the applications. So you would have to create two applications over here. Here you would give the name of the application with which you want to identify the app. You would give the primary email ID and phone number where we would contact you if we have any updates about the application. You can give some additional email IDs as well where we would send these updates. Here is the signature of the Android application. This to Android developers would be familiar. This is the package name of an Android app. One application on the Play Store can have only one package name. So the advantage of this is that if we give credentials of one application to you, those credentials will only work from that particular application where the package name resides. If somebody else tries to verify a number from a different application using the same credentials, that would not work because the signature can be only unique to one application. We also provide a couple of callback URLs. This is to notify you if you want to maintain a record on your side as to how a call is doing or how a verification is doing. So as soon as the call lands on the phone, on the customer's phone, you would get a hit on your server saying that this was the status of the call. And once the verification is done, you would get a hit on your server saying that the verification is done, it was done in this time, and what was the status of the verification. If it failed, why did it fail? All these details can be passed in this in these callback URLs. All of these are optional parameters. Once you click on Create Application, you would get the application ID and secret, which you can then use to integrate the NOTP SDK in your Android application. Once you create the application, you'll be able to see it over here, and you can edit the details of the application anytime by clicking on Edit over here. And you can also change the status of the application. Currently, it is active. You can change it to inactive whenever you please. The next tab on the left, you can see is the usage tab. You can see how the verifications are doing for a particular time period over here. We have various filters with which you can segregate the data and see data only for particular applications or for only particular countries. If verifications are not doing well in one country, you might need to tweak the process over there and then see how it does further. You can also change the, you can have custom dates over here to see verifications only from a particular time to a particular time. Over here, you see if for these applications, we have 6 attempts in Singapore and 20 attempts in India. The average turnaround time for these were about 2.35 seconds and 1.35 seconds. The success percentage also is visible over here. These were, of course, test verifications that we did. When you go to the outbox, you will be able to see how each of the verifications did. So if you want to know how a particular verification did, then you would go here. You can see that this verification happened at 7:24 a.m. It happened for this number. It was a success, and it happened in 4.48 seconds. So this is the advantage of this particular page where you can see verifications on a macro level and a micro level, in fact. Then you have the reports tab. In case you want this data on your local device, you can easily generate a report over here. You can again, add filters. If you don't want the verifications for an entire day or for the entire month, you can select a custom time range and get the verifications only for that time range. Here we have a restriction of custom time of 31 days, you can request. So for example, if I go back and from March 1st to March 31st, this is the time range that I want the verifications for. I want the verifications that were only failed and see why did they fail. And I want verifications that happened only in India. And if you have multiple applications, then you can select up to 5 applications and proceed. You can also give the report a name so that you can verify. I mean, you can have a record of all the reports that have happened, that you have generated in this dashboard. Once you click on create report, you will be able to see the report entry over here, and it will show you this status that your report is being generated. It takes some time for it to generate, and after which you will be able to see this button where you can click on download, and the CSV file will be downloaded on your local device, and you can see all the verifications. This dashboard, the ExoVerify dashboard, is currently only limited to NOTP. We will give other verification methods very soon. The last tab that we have is the resources tab, where we have a support article on NOTP, where you can check out all the frequently asked questions that people have on NOTP. We also have extensive documentation on how you can integrate NOTP with your Android application, and you can check out sample code as well on GitHub. There's a markdown file where everything is available, all the permissions that you need to ask the end customer. Sample code in Java is also available. The developers can easily clone that repository, play around with it, add credentials, and they're good to go. We also have a couple of other artifacts and also the savings calculator. So if you were to do these many verifications, this is how much you would save annually when compared to SMS OTP. So this is pretty much what we had for the demo. We are now open to questions.